I'm Trina, and today I have a series review over the Mara Dyer trilogy by Michelle Hodkin. The first book in the series is The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer. The second book is The Evolution of Mara Dyer. And the third and final book is The Retribution of Mara Dyer. I'm going to start out with a summary and my non-spoilery thoughts on the series, and then I'm going to move into some things about the third book that I want to be able to discuss, which of course would spoil the third book. So if you've read it, stick around for the last part and I will give you ample warning for when the spoilers will begin. I went into the first book not really having any idea what this series was about. I knew that Mara had been in an accident and couldn't remember what had happened, but some of her friends had died. That was all I knew. But the synopsis that I think is commonly known is that Mara is recovering her memories from this accident, and she's seeing her friends that supposedly died in that accident. So the question of the series is Mara suffering from a mental disorder that's causing her to hallucinate, or is something paranormal going on here? There's a lot more to it, and that is a really good question. Is Mara crazy, or is something paranormal going on here? That's the main basis of the series. So with that said, I believe that the general consensus of most people that have read the entire series is that they really loved the first two books and that confusion, but they didn't like the third book and how it answered that question. However, I am completely opposite. I did not like the first two books and how it presented that question. I loved the third book and how it wrapped it up. I'll start out by saying I flew through all of these books. There's definitely that edge of curiosity, just morbid curiosity. I've got to keep reading. I've got to find out how this ends. What on earth is going on here? And it's not a huge time commitment, so that's why I flew through them, even though I said I didn't really love the first two books. Now, my problems with the first two books are that, oh man, it's way insta-lovey. I did not like that at all. Now, you can say, and I did see this at first, Mara and Noah start out kind of really not liking each other, and I did appreciate that. At least it wasn't they're in love from the moment they meet. But as soon as they acknowledge their feelings for each other, it was like, I will die without you. I cannot go on without you. Too fast. Slow it down, guys. Mara's internal narration felt very angsty. She just stopped functioning when Noah was not around. And I didn't like that about the first two books. Everything Mara did was so wrapped up in him and what was going on with him too, and that kind of prevented us from getting answers about her. So that's what I didn't like. I didn't like how boy-centric it was, how wrapped up in that love story it was. What I did like about book 3 though is that Mara has several scenes away from Noah, and we are actually introduced a female character, and Mara is spending most of her time with her female friend and a male friend, and you get to see Mara for who she is as an individual. I did enjoy that. I got to know her better. She processed things in just a more clear-headed way because Noah wasn't around. She did still think about Noah, but it just wasn't as annoying as before. It felt like in book 3, the author got to a point where she was like, alright, I really gotta get down to business now and start answering all these questions that I brought up, because everything books 1 and 2 did were, I'm gonna just keep confusing the reader and bringing up all these questions and never answering anything just to draw it out and get them to read the next book. But book 3, I really felt like there was a change in the writing style. It was very much more straightforward. There is a big difference in the themes of the third book. I kind of feel like the themes here were kind of like literary genius. They were a little bit more than what I would ever expect from a YA novel. I really think that the author had a great idea here. I think a big reason why a lot of people don't like the third book is because those first two books set an expectation, and then the third book was like, nope, I'm going on a much more serious route. And the first two books, if you liked them and you wanted more of that, that's why the third book could be a flop. Honestly, I felt like book 3, the structure of it and what the author was trying to do was like a 5-star well-rounded book and idea, but it was hindered by the foundation that books 1 and 2 built for it. I'm gonna start telling you why, and this is the spoiler part. So if you haven't read book 3, you don't want to know anything about it, go away. Come back later when you've read it, or don't come back, because I know we all forget to come back to things. Spoilers, here they come, spoilers. So in book 3, and this is actually near the end of book 3, so it's a total spoiler for the whole series, we find out that the stuff behind Mara and Noah and their paranormal powers that they seem to be having, where Mara can cause death with her mind and Noah can heal with his mind, we actually find out that they aren't super-powered humans. It's not like a league of mutants, and it's not hallucinations, but that they are the embodiment of literary archetypes. I love this idea. That's not a mainstream popular idea, but I loved it. It really sold it for me because I really felt like Michelle Hodkin was like, what did I learn about literature in my college or high school courses when we were talking about archetypes of the hero and the shadow and the trickster and the mentor? What would these archetypes look like in modern fiction? And then she like took it to an extreme version and was like, well, what kind of a superpower would this archetype have? Well, a hero, he sets everything right, so he would heal. He could bring about great good and change. That's what Noah does. And the shadow, or the antagonist, is kind of his opposite, and the shadow is basically wreaking havoc, is the problem, therefore could be death or pain. That's what Mara does. We even see archetypes within Jamie, who definitely embodies the trickster archetype, where the trickster very classically is a character that is there to kind of trick the hero of the story into thinking something else is true that's not. And Jamie doesn't necessarily do this with Noah, who is the hero of the story, but Jamie's power is that he can change somebody's mind. He can suggest something to them and then they will do it. And then the mentor archetype in this book is the professor, or forgot his name, dang it. It's been a while since I read these because I've been sick and I don't remember the guy's name, but he was the professor. He's basically the old guy, the mentor character, the Dumbledore, the Gandalf, the one that's older, who's been around, who knows what's going on and can train the new people. Well, what kind of a power would the mentor archetype have? What about prophecy, visions? The professor in this story could see the future and could see how things were going to play out. I just felt like these superpowers that were assigned to the archetypes were so perfectly done. They were really fitting when you think of the classic literary archetypes. I really loved it and how she explored this, and I really thought that it made sense and it came together well, and even her mythology behind it came together well. Every generation, like, these archetypes are classical figures, so they live a long time, and whenever they pass on, someone else in their bloodline is going to start manifesting these things, and usually it's going to manifest when you're like a teenager, set off by hormones, and that's why it had to be a YA story. And then if these archetypes were real in the real world and they did have these powers, how would the rest of the world react to that? If a character really had a superpower in real life, we would probably put them into a mental institution, which is exactly what happens with Mara and her friends in this story. And I felt like everything that Michelle Hodkin did in her book, she had a reason for it, and I really felt like it was very well thought out. So that's why I personally loved the third book. I'm glad that I finished out the series because I thought it was strong, but I definitely see how it may not be the most popular thing because this really isn't a mainstream idea. Usually we're used to more like X-Men things. Yeah, these characters in Mara Dyer did have powers, but they weren't sensationalized and pop culture type of powers. It was a very literary idea that just is a little bit more unique. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with people not liking it or do liking it or whatever. It just is different. But I feel like that idea might have suited like an adult audience better, but people who like to read literary fiction are not going to sit through these first two books. So that's kind of where I think the weakness of this series is having this amazing idea, but kind of being hidden behind this angsty confusion part of the first two books. So those are my thoughts on Mara Dyer. I know a lot of people really didn't like the third book. If you stuck around this long, I would love to discuss this further with you down in the comments. Let me know if you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you could point out any more archetypes in the story, because the one that I was really confused about was Stella and how she fit into it. Her power was that she could read the minds of people, but I wasn't able to find an archetype that she really fit in. So if you know, I really want to know that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the comments. Bye!